I had sat through hundreds of project meetings with my father, but this one would be the last I'd attend, as the version of myself I had been for a decade. It was a Tuesday. We were reviewing the McKinley site timeline when he looked at me, calm businesslike, and said, "Camille, you're not leadership material." I blinked, thought I'd misheard, but he kept going. "We've officially transferred 70% of Ryden and Colby to Colby. He'll be stepping in as managing director next quarter." No explanation, no warning, just a fact delivered with the same tone he used to announce lunch orders. I stared at the Gantt chart on the wall, like it might explain something he couldn't. My chest tightened, but I didn't speak. I didn't ask why. I already knew the answer. Colby, with his bright smile and empty calendar, was visionary. I was reliable, dependable, tireless, just not inspiring. The rest of the meeting blurred. Something about reassigning client accounts, new creative direction, budget reallocations. I nodded when expected, took notes I'd never use. Afterward, I went back to my office and closed the door. The hum of the overhead light was deafening. I sat at my desk, staring at my reflection in the black computer screen. 10 years. 10 years of early mornings, late nights, skipped birthdays, missed vacations, all traded for this moment. A dismissal wrapped in a sentence. I pulled open my bottom drawer and stared at the emergency bottle of bourbon I kept there for long nights and tough calls. My hand hovered over it, but didn't move. I didn't need to numb this. I needed to remember it, the sentence, the moment, the betrayal, because the next move would be mine. My earliest memories were of crawling under my father's drafting table, the smell of sawdust clinging to his jeans as I colored on the backs of old blueprints. I knew how to read a floor plan before I could write a full sentence. While other kids played house, I reorganized imaginary job sites. By 12, I was answering phones at the front desk. By 16, I was shadowing my father during client walkthroughs, clipboard in hand, asking questions he once said made him proud. "Camille's got the Ryden eye," he used to brag. "She sees the structure inside the chaos." I believed him. I skipped a scholarship at NYU to stay close and attend Oregon Tech, majored in construction management, graduated first in my class, turned down 2 offers from national firms. Ryden and Comey is the legacy, I told myself. Stay and build it. So I did. For 10 years, I was the first one in and the last to leave. I ran payroll, trained new hires, managed every major contract after Colby bailed on the startup scene and needed time to reset. I worked through the flu, 2 breakups, and a flood that nearly took out our records room. I was dependable, steady, invisible. Vacations became a concept. Weekends blurred into inbox catch-ups. I poured myself into the business because I believed that one day it would pour back into me. My name wasn't on the sign outside, but I thought it was etched in the foundation. Turns out, I was never building a legacy. I was just holding the structure up until the real leader came along. And when he did, they handed him the keys I'd spent a decade earning. Colby came back from Austin with a half-packed duffel bag and 3 new tattoos. His startup had pivoted too late. He said like failure was just another bullet point on an evolving resume. Our parents welcomed him with open arms, the kind usually reserved for war heroes or prodigal sons. "He's got vision," my father told the team at the Monday briefing. Fresh energy, big picture thinking. No mention of the unpaid bills or the investors still calling our mother's phone. Just a second chance wrapped in charisma and potential. 2 days later, he was named Director of Strategic Growth. No job description, no defined duties, just a glass office, a leather chair, and his nameplate on the door across from mine. Meanwhile, I was still approving subcontractor bids, writing safety protocols, managing budgets, and walking sites in steel-toed boots. Every invoice still passed through my desk. Every angry client still called me first. Colby spent his afternoons ideating. His slides were pretty full of buzzwords: disruptive alignment, customer-centric branding. I once caught him Googling what a punch list was. Still, my father beamed at every half-baked pitch. That's the kind of innovation we need. I stayed quiet, kept things running covered for his mistakes. When a supplier almost walked over a miscommunication Colby caused, I spent 2 days repairing the damage behind the scenes. No one thanked me. Colby got a write-up in the industry newsletter. Mom said he was finally finding his lane. Dad called him a natural leader. And me, I was just the project manager who made everything work. The scaffolding they leaned on until they no longer needed the structure beneath it. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't, not until the filing cabinet betrayed me. It started with a missing permit. We were prepping final paperwork for the city inspector on the Eastbrook site, and someone had misfiled the zoning approvals again. I headed to the back filing room myself. Ever since Colby's efficiency overhaul, nothing was where it used to be. Labels were swapped, folders, half-empty cabinets purged of logic. Half an hour in, I found a folder in the wrong drawer. Legal, confidential, internal transfers. Not what I was looking for, but curiosity nudged me. My gut already knew before my hands flipped it open. The first page hit like a brick to the chest. Transfer of ownership Ryden and Company. Effective March 3rd. 75% to Colby Ryden. 25% retained jointly by Gerald and Irene Ryden. No mention of me, not as a shareholder, not as a board member, not even as staff acknowledgement. I flipped through all 16 pages, scanning for any clause that might explain it, some justification, anything. But it was clean, deliberate, signed, witnessed, final. I didn't hear Eleanor approach until her reflection appeared in the glass behind me. "You shouldn't be in that drawer," she said softly. My voice barely rose above a whisper. "Did you know?" She hesitated, then looked down at her shoes. "Your father said he'd tell you when the time was right." 6 months, I said, holding up the document. "It's been 6 months." Her silence said everything. I walked past her without another word, folder clutched in my hand like it was radioactive. I didn't go back to my office. I didn't grab my laptop or coat. I just drove home with the truth, strapped to the passenger seat like a witness. And for the first time in 10 years, I didn't set an alarm. The smell of roast chicken hit me before I rang the doorbell. My mother's version of diplomacy: feed first, deflect after. I walked in without knocking. Same house, same walls, but everything felt misaligned, like someone had tilted the frame and pretended it was straight. My father was in his usual seat, reading, glasses low on his nose, flipping through Colby's latest proposal. Colby stood by the kitchen island, casually sipping wine, like this wasn't the site of a quiet demolition. "Camille," my mother called from the stove, bright and cheerful. "Just in time. Sit, relax." I nodded, set my purse down, and watched the charade unfold. Colby launched into some plan about digital outreach, and my father nodded as if he'd discovered fire. I caught phrases like market visibility and next-gen branding before tuning out completely. I waited until dessert, until my mother brought out the peach pie, and my father loosened his belt like it was any other Sunday. Then I pulled the folder from my bag and set it on the center of the table. The table went still. "What's this?" my father asked. "You tell me," I said. It was in the legal drawer labeled confidential. His eyes dropped to the tab, and I saw the flicker. Guilt, or maybe just annoyance at being caught. "I was going to talk to you about it." "When?" I asked, voice flat. "Before or after the next newsletter announcement, Camille?" "You gave away my birthright without even telling me." My mother's hand froze around the pie server. Colby's smile vanished. My father set down his fork like the weight of it had suddenly changed. "We thought it was best for the company." "No," I said, pushing the folder toward him. "You thought I'd stay no matter what." I stood, took my coat, and walked out before they could say another word. The folder stayed behind. I didn't return to the office on Monday or Tuesday. No one called, not even Eleanor. Maybe they thought I needed space. Or maybe they knew. By Wednesday, I logged into my work email for what I hoped would be the last time. I drafted my resignation with the precision they'd always praised me for: professional, factual, detached. No emotion, just the truth. Effective immediately, I resigned from my position at Ryden and Company. Per my contract, I will be using my accrued vacation leave to transition out. Please direct all future correspondence to Colby Ryden. I didn't sign it best or sincerely, just Camille. Then I set my out-of-office reply. Thank you for your message. I am no longer available. For all project-related matters, please contact Colby Ryden at... I sat in the stillness for a while staring at the screen. Then I shut the laptop and slid it into my drawer. That night I drove to the office long after everyone had gone home. The parking lot lights cast long shadows across the pavement, and I walked through the building with quiet steps, like visiting a former self. I packed only what belonged to me: my notebooks, a framed photo of my dog from college, the small potted succulent that had somehow survived 5 years of neglect. I left the awards the office chair. I picked out the monitor I'd upgraded myself. On my desk, I placed a single note centered beneath the Ryden and Colby pen plaque. Let your leader handle it. I left my keys in a plain envelope marked HR. No signature, no closure. When I walked out the front doors, I didn't look back, but I knew they'd look for me. The moment things started to fall apart. By the 4th day, the emails started. A junior project coordinator forwarded me a message chain with the subject line, urgent, Anderson invoice rejected. I read it, then archived it. I wasn't their safety net anymore. The voicemail from Grant's assistant came next. Hi Camille, sorry to bother you. Mr. Grant was hoping to clarify a few line items on the site budget. He said you'd know. Could you give him a quick call when you're free? I wasn't free. I was done. By the end of the week, word began to circulate. The Anderson contract was at risk. Maxwell Grant was frustrated. Site staff were missing instructions. Invoices were backlogged. Colby had called an emergency meeting that turned into a 4-hour spiral with no action plan. And still I stayed silent. I deleted each new message as it came, every ping, a reminder that they'd built a castle with no architect. I didn't need to sabotage anything. All I had to do was nothing. That's what made it poetic. Maxwell finally called my personal number on Saturday evening. His voice was clipped but polite. Camille, I've worked with your family for almost a decade, and this is the first time I've considered walking away. You've always been the reason I stayed. I'd like to understand what's happening. I listened to the voicemail twice, then put my phone on silent. Later that night, another call came. My father. Camille, this is serious. Grant's threatening to pull the Anderson project. Colby doesn't have the answers. We need you in the office Monday, please. He didn't finish the sentence. Just a click as the message ended. No apology, no ownership, just panic. I didn't want to respond. Instead, I opened my laptop for the first time all week and began outlining my next move. Not for them, for me. I started with the budgets, 10 years worth of spreadsheets, and projections coded with my formulas. Then came the project timelines, Gantt charts, delivery schedules, subcontractor pipelines, all systems I designed from scratch. Next, the client files, not the contracts, but the invisible layer underneath: preferences, pain points, birthdays, kids' names, how to approach each meeting, the kind of intelligence no software could replicate. By the end of the weekend, I had 20 pages of portfolio that mapped the muscle memory of Ryden and Colby, built quietly behind the scenes. I labeled it Operational Legacy, Camille Ryden. I didn't include any proprietary company data, just proof. Pure, undeniable proof. Monday morning, I met with Ashland and Price, our old rival across town. Their managing partner, Lillian Song, greeted me like I was already part of the team. We've followed your work for years, she said, flipping through the printout of my summary portfolio. Frankly, I'm surprised you stayed as long as you did. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The offer came quickly. Executive Director of Operations, full autonomy, profit sharing, 4 weeks of required vacation. I told her I'd need to review everything with my legal counsel. That afternoon, I met with Margot Hayes, a friend from undergrad, who now specialized in employment contracts. We spread the documents out across her kitchen island. She circled clauses in red, crossed out loopholes in blue. This is solid, she said. Better than most and more than fair. I nodded. The old version of me might have hesitated, afraid to leap, but I wasn't looking for loyalty anymore. I was done proving myself to people who never looked. That night I emailed Lillian back. I hadn't signed yet, but my hands didn't shake when I typed, "Let's continue this conversation over lunch." I wasn't surprised when the doorbell rang. I'd been expecting it since the second voicemail. Gerald Ryden didn't knock. He never had. He stood on my doorstep with tension in his shoulders and a folder under his arm. No small talk, no smile, just urgency. "We need you back," he said. "Anderson's threatening litigation. Staff are panicking. Colby's in over his head." I stepped aside, not to be polite, but because I wanted to hear the pitch in full. He laid it out like a business deal: raise title, bump corner office, Chief Operations Officer, full autonomy on paper. "We can make it official by end of week," he said, as if the last month hadn't happened. "You want me to clean up the mess?" I said flatly. "I want you back where you belong." I leaned against the counter, arms folded. "All right, here's what I want." He blinked. 40-feet ownership board seat, binding vote rights, and a maximum 45-hour work week in writing. If I'm building this thing, I'm not dying for it. He stared at me like I'd spoken a different language. "That's unreasonable." "No," I said. "What was unreasonable was asking me to run your company without a seat at the table. I'm not doing that again. You'd risk everything over a number." I shook my head. "I'm not risking anything. You are." He didn't argue, just stood there wrestling with a reality that no longer bent to his will. "You have 2 days," I said. "After that, the offer from Ashland and Price goes to signature." He didn't speak again, just gathered his folder and walked to the door like someone who realized the game had changed. And this time I was the one setting the rules. The riverfront grill was neutral ground, public enough to stay civil, quiet enough for legal documents. I arrived at noon sharp. They were already seated. Harold Peterson, our family attorney, opened his leather folder when I sat down, but I held up a hand. "Before we start," Colby said, eyes on me, "I owe you an apology." He didn't dress it up, no excuses, just a soft, honest tone I hadn't heard in years. "I'm in over my head, Camille. You made it look easy. I thought I could fake it. I can't." My mother, hands folded in her lap, looked up. "We should have included you. We thought you'd understand, but we were wrong." Then my father cleared his throat, the last holdout in a crumbling wall. "I assumed you'd always be there," he said, voice low. "That was my mistake." I didn't smile. I didn't flinch. "Here's what I need," I said. 35% ownership transferred from Colby. Equal vote on all board decisions. Co-leadership structure. Operations for me, creative for him. And a maximum 45-hour work week policy for all executives, formalized in writing. Harold nodded and slid the draft agreement across the table. "Those terms are reflected here." I read every line twice. No emotion, just clarity. When I was done, I signed. Then Colby, my mother, finally my father. The pen left a strange silence in its wake, but it wasn't awkward. It was settled. We all knew the roles now, and mine finally had weight. Exactly 1 month later, I walked back through the doors of Ryden & Co. Not as the fallback, not as the fixer, but as Chief Operating Officer and co-owner. Colby had already moved offices. Mine was newly renovated. No corner window, no ego, just what I needed: a space that functioned, a space that was mine. I restructured our weekly ops meetings, re-established chain of command protocols, and delegated appropriately. Within 3 weeks, client response times improved. Project overruns dropped by half, and staff turnover slowed. We didn't need miracles. We just needed systems and someone to make them work. Colby, to his credit, stayed in his lane. He thrived in front of clients, pitching ideas, hosting site visits, building relationships. He even asked for help when he didn't know something. That alone told me everything had shifted. I left the office at 5:30, not midnight. Joined a gym, started sleeping again, had my first Saturday off in years. I even said yes to dinner with Malcolm, the environmental consultant I used to cancel on 5 times a quarter. The board meetings changed too. They listened when I spoke, asked for updates, waited for my vote. At the end of one meeting, after the room cleared out, my father lingered behind. He didn't look up when he said it, but the words were clear. You were always the leader. I just couldn't see it. I didn't say thank you. I just nodded. Then packed my binders, stood tall, and walked out, ready for the next project.